You're a patient.
Yep.
You're laying back in the chair. You're prone. You have no idea what's going on. And I think one of the biggest bits of misinformation is if it doesn't hurt, it's not broke.
Yeah.
Right? Is over the last 12 months is $186. It varies from about $170 to $220 per month on a monthly
That's insane.
basis.
You should just be
Yes, it is.
You should just you should stop everything else that you're doing and jump
You're going to
everything.
hate what I have. In order to make your clients successful, have the courage to hold them accountable. Because one of the things that I love about the firm that we've been working with is they would hold us accountable, and I in turn would hold my team accountable. Because you could drive 1,000 leads, but if someone doesn't pick up the phone and call them, it's very easy to point a finger at somebody else.
Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Go. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National, where we provide predictable new patient flow for offices just like yours. And today you are in for a doozy. I have the CEO of TLC Dental Group, and his name is Sasha. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to hear things that you've never heard before, specifically around driving new patients and some tricks that I've never seen anybody in the dental industry doing to help make sure that your new patients are showing up, as well as a mind-blowing number that's better than even some of the best marketing people in the dental industry. I'm talking about like Smile Direct Club, Invisalign. He has his acquisition dialed in, and he didn't share every little detail, but he shared a lot that I think is really going to help you. So stay tuned. All right, so Sasha, so why don't you tell us how many practices you have and roughly how many new patients a month you're seeing?
So we have 6 physical locations as far as practices go, 7 locations total. If we go back 8 years in time, we were seeing about 250 to 350 patients per week as an enterprise. And fast forward to today, we're seeing roughly about 1,100 patients a week as an enterprise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
1,100 a week. That's a lot.
Yeah, for 6 locations. And within those 6 locations, when we originally started, we were just doing GP, general dentistry. But now we are what we like to call diapers to diapers or cradle to grave. And
That's awesome.
when it comes to new patients, we're seeing roughly about 550 new patients actually coming into the practice.
Sorry to disrupt the show, but I got something crazy to share with you. We are attempting to connect with all of our listeners. We have thousands of people that listen to this podcast, and we want to meet you in person. We have 4 events coming up, and I want to give you a discount code that you can use for the next week to save $300 off your ticket. The discount code is Gary Bird, and the link is going to be just down below. You can also go to smcnational.com/events. I hope to connect with you in person and help each other grow our businesses. Can't wait to see you soon. Oh, okay. So you said you're seeing about 1,100 total patients per week, but about 500 is okay. Got it. But you're seeing about 500 to 600 new patients a month.
A month, yes.
Perfect.
Now,
okay.
One of the biggest challenges that I think any dental practice or any dental enterprise has is patients that actually show up. So there are a couple of little things that we've found out over time that work incredibly well when it comes to getting those new patients to actually come in physically.
Yeah. So let's talk through that. What have you figured out?
So according to the ADA, right? And the ADA has a lot of very reliable data. The ADA says that 50% of new patients that schedule actually never make it to the practice. The reality is that most of those patients that don't make it either do what I call the perpetual 2-week reschedule, and then there's a small percentage that just don't show up.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has worked very well for us is twofold, right? Number one, it's getting those patients in as soon as possible, right? Not scheduling them a month out, right? Because if you don't schedule them within the next 48 hours, we know that 50% of those patients just won't come in, right?
Correct, yeah.
But the second thing, and this is a little bit of the secret sauce that I'm going to give away, is that we actually have our doctors call our new patients for a little bit of what we call an introductory call. It's more to welcome them to the practice. And what we've discovered is instead of 50% of those patients never coming in, of the new patients, we've dropped that number down to 15%.
Got it. That's amazing.
Question. When's the last time that a doctor ever called you? And not professionally, as a patient.
I talk to dentists all the time, but that's for work, right? Yeah, no, I'm not hearing from the doctor. So that's huge. And so you're you are getting them in quickly, and that's a big one. And the thing I don't think that people understand about getting people in quickly is when you get the patient in quickly, you are actually protecting yourself against the other dental offices, because most dental offices right now don't have capacity. So by saying, hey, we're going to get every single patient in 48 hours, 48 business hours from when they contact us, you are really setting yourself apart. And then when you have the doctor reach out to them as well, so you're like, hey, we're getting you in, and then the doctor's reaching out right away, that, I mean, you're probably one group that's doing that and doing both of those things. I'm sure there might be somebody else out there, but I haven't met them. So tell me how you have got the doctors to all buy in on this, and then tell me a little bit about their workflow. Are they doing it at the end of the day, or how does that look and feel?
So let me take a little bit of a step back. From a business perspective, yes, we're doing things that other people don't do, but I would say it a little bit differently, right? I look at it, how do you take the best care of your patient possible, right? And for those of us that have been in dental pain, it's akin to someone having a knife in your mouth and
Yeah.
slowly rotating, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the business factor away and you put in the human factor, when a patient calls us, or a new patient calls us, or an existing patient calls us, one of the first questions we ask is, are you in any discomfort, right? And if they say yes, we say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it, right? And if it's anything above a 7, we just tell them, whether they're existing or whether they're new, hey, listen, come in. You might be waiting for a while, but just come in right away, right?
Yeah.
That's the human factor, right? And to answer your other question, you said, how do I get the doctors to buy in? It's not so much of the doctors buying in, but when you look at the dental space, right? Dental is just one of a multitude of different medical verticals, right?
Yep.
And I don't say this to be facetious, and I don't say this in any derogatory way, but there are all these different verticals in medical. The most intimate vertical in medical is OBGYN, proctologist, urologist, right? But the second most intimate one is dental, right? Think about it. You're a patient.
Yep.
You're laying back in the chair. You're prone. You have no idea what's going on. And I think one of the biggest bits of misinformation is, if it doesn't hurt, it's not broke.
Yeah.
Right? But when it comes to dental, that's the biggest fallacy.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. And, you gave a wonderful, wonderful presentation when we were at the Inner Circle event. But when you look at that perfect triangle in business, right? The perfect triangle is faster, better, cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And from a business owner's perspective, you can have faster and better, you can have cheaper and better, or cheaper and faster, but you can't have all three. But as
Correct.
a patient, you can, right? Because aside from a cut on the inside of your mouth, nothing in your mouth will heal itself. So a patient gets to experience cheaper, better, and faster, right? Because if you have a cavity and you take care of it today, you might spend $400 or $500, right? But if you don't take care of it, what happens?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Becomes
But
a
a lot of
crown,
that,
becomes
but
a
that's
root canal.
education. So that's education though, because most people don't,
Agreed.
you understand this. I understand it. So once I started working with dentists, I started taking better care of my teeth, because I heard, all their propaganda over and over and over again, but it's true, right? Like they were like, hey, if you straighten your teeth just a little bit, you'll stop getting so much buildup on the back of your teeth, and just little things like that I just never even thought of. And I wouldn't have known it otherwise if I didn't go to the dentist. So a lot of that's education. And so, I want to jump into that, because I think that's really important from a marketing perspective, that somewhere in the process, these patients are being educated. But I still really want to know, how do you get the dentist to call these new patients? Because if you're seeing 500, how many dentists do you guys have?
We have close to
Roughly?
20 dentists altogether.
Okay, so it's a couple.
we're
So it's a
21
couple
dentists.
calls a day. So a couple calls. So each dentist is responsible for calling what, 4 or 5 new patients a day.
They're responsible. So the way we do it internally is, when a patient calls, right, we literally, whoever's taking the call sends the patient ID over to the doctor, right? The doctor pulls up the information in CareStack, and the doctor throughout the day, they'll have breaks, they'll have time, or in between patients, they'll typically reach out to the patients. Now, the reality is our doctors typically reach, at best, maybe 1 out of 4 patients. But what's very interesting is, when they do reach out to the patients, they call to introduce themselves. But I would say more often than not, and I don't have real data, but anecdotally, it's probably about half the time, they find out things about the patient, and sometimes end up bringing the patient in sooner. There
Yeah.
was a great example this morning, right? We had a patient that called this morning, wanted to come in, and they were in a lot of discomfort. They said they can't come in until Monday. Doctor calls a patient to welcome them to the practice, get to know them, make them feel a little bit more comfortable. And to answer your question about buy-in, statistically, they say 65% of dental patients are scared, nervous, or apprehensive when it comes to coming into the practice, right?
100%. Yeah.
The WIFM, or the what's in it for me, meaning for the doctor, is when they reach out to the patient, they become more comfortable. This way, they're more comfortable telling the doctor what's really going on instead of, hey, doc, figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a great example was this morning. New patient called this morning, said they couldn't come until Monday. The doctor calls, reaches out to them, and without being too specific, it sounded to the doctor like this was something a lot more serious that was about to accelerate. The short version of it is this patient went to a doctor about 2 months ago. They had an active infection. They did nothing about it, but this is basically, a powder keg waiting to explode, and got the patient in an hour later.
Got it. That's huge. Yeah, no, that makes a huge difference. And you're making that connection, and now the dentist kind of understands them, and that rapport is there. And it didn't take a lot of time, I imagine. If you're doing a couple of calls a day, 2-3 minutes each, you can definitely add that into a workflow. Now, that's great to get the patients in, but how are you getting all these patients? What of the 500 to 600 new patients a month that you're seeing? How many of those are coming from patient referrals versus marketing?
So I think everything is marketing, right? We come out of the womb marketing, right? We're all cute and our moms feed us, right? Or we get angry and they do something to satiate us, right? But it's interesting because I go back to data, right? To me, if I look at this very simplistically, there are two channels to bring in patients, right? One channel is personal referrals. The other channel is everything else, right?
Yeah.
That everything else could be a drive-by, could be a walk-in, could be social media, could be snail mail, could be a whole plethora of things, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can create a great reputation online, and it's very hard to get positive reviews. It's very easy to get negative reviews, and
Yeah.
you know this
No,
better
you have
than
to.
most,
You
right?
don't have to do anything to get negative reviews. You have to do something to get positive reviews. Yeah.
Reviews.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But to answer your question, again, I go back to data, right? And it's interesting because the data is very similar in a lot of different service industries. And I look at us as a service industry. I look at us as we're not competing with other dentists. You know what we're competing with? A school uniform, a vacation, a new set of tires for the car, right? That's what we're competing against, right?
Correct.
And the interesting part is when you look at the two channels, right? There's personal referrals and there's everything else, right? On the personal referrals, our own data literally mimics what the ADA tells us, that a personally referred patient is 78% likely to say yes to treatment on the first visit, right?
Yep.
But any outside referral is 23% likely to say yes by the third visit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because the trust isn't there. So just so everybody's on the same page with this, when the patient referral, because people ask me all the time, why are these high trust patients versus? I always talk about high trust versus low trust.
Because that was ingenious, by the way. You put it in words. Forgive me for interrupting you. That really, and I, for lack of a better word, took a liberty and plagiarized it when I was sharing with my team some of what I learned at that inner circle. But
that's awesome.
It's high trust versus low trust.
Yes. And so someone has to massage the trust, and a patient referral or a doctor referral does all the work for you. They do all the legwork and you don't have to do anything. And people are often in shock because I'm a marketing guy. I'm like, marketing patients are the worst patients. You don't want to live just on marketing patients because they're low trust.
Actually, there's one set that's a little worse, but we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Insurance patients maybe, but so the low trust patients are the marketing patients, and they have to be massaged and they have to be worked in. And what we've come to realize is that all has to be tracked. Like you have to actually track the separate performance of those two kinds of patients, and you'll realize right away, wow, the patient referrals are recarrying at 95%, 100%, while the marketing patients are recarrying at 30%. You'll get a blended average of 60% out of that, 70% out of that, but you're losing your shorts on the marketing patients if you don't separate those out. So yeah, so which one's the worst? You said there's one even worse
Groupon.
than
Groupon are the worst patients.
Yes, I remember
because those
Groupon.
are the patients that aren't even loyal to themselves. They look at things as a price, right? Look, if I'm buying tires and I'm buying a set of Michelins that are Michelin ABC, well, I'll compare prices, but how do you compare value, right?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that have no loyalty period. Everything is about dollars. And the truth of the matter is, if I have a patient that their only focus is dollars and they're not concerned about their own future well-being, there are a lot of doctors out there that will do substandard work. Go have at it, right?
Yeah.
But for those that truly care about the long term, and we talked about that perfect triangle before, right? If I do a great job for you as a patient, within a very brief period of time, you are no longer profitable to me. Yes, you'll come in for your regular hygiene, but hygiene's not a profit center, right?
Yeah.
But if I do a great job for you, though, this is where you're so valuable. You'll refer other patients.
Yeah.
And I love
Well,
to
see
use
that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, please. I'm sorry.
Oh, so here's the tricky part, though. So a clinical excellence that doctors measure is not the same as patient journey excellence that the patient measures.
Took the words out of my mouth. Yes.
Yeah. So they're two different things, and doctors usually mix them up, and so do the team members, because the team members are talking to the doctor. So what the doctor sees as a bad job or a good job, the patient is seeing something totally different. And it's little things like getting them in quickly, calling them and checking on them, making sure that you answer their questions, that you spend a little bit of extra time with them,
making sure you answer their phone calls.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
You and I talked about this just a little bit, and you did a great job at the symposium. But the biggest challenge that I see, right, is I think a great example that I've seen with one of my former clients, right? It was a group dental practice, and they were doing marketing with a social media company. The social media company was driving 500 leads a month that people actually took the time to fill out their name, address, phone number, and they were getting in about 10% of those people. And then when we started looking at the data, they were calling them probably on average within 48 hours, right?
No. Yeah.
Once I got them to change that, and they turned off before 9 a.m., right?
Yep.
And it was only on from 9:15 a.m. until 4:45 p.m. And once they turned that average return time into 2 minutes instead of 2 days, they were capturing 90% of those people.
That's crazy. Yeah. So okay. So of your 500 to 600 new patients, how many of those are patient referrals, would you say?
I would say roughly about 1/3 to 50%. It varies month by month.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And just for the audience, a healthy practice is in that 60-40 range somewhere, right? 60-40 marketing, 60-40 patient referrals. It doesn't matter which way, but that's a healthy office. Anytime you get a out of whack on that, if you get into like 20% either side, there's something broken. Either your patient experience is broken or your marketing's broken or something like that. So, okay.
Or your response time. Yeah. And I agree with you 100%.
Well, patient. Yeah. But that's your patient journey. If your response time is 3 weeks, your patient journey's broke right at the beginning in step one, right? So, yep. Okay, so let's talk to this. So you're getting about 250, let's just say 300 for math's sake, 300 new patients a month from marketing. So patient referrals, if you're getting 300 of those, that means you're doing an excellent job on treating your patients really well. They love you. They're telling their friends and family. That's a operational lever. You can't scale it, right? So if you couldn't double it tomorrow or triple it tomorrow if you wanted to, but it's really the base that you're building off of. And then on the marketing side, the 300 other patients, where are those coming from?
Just for clarity, those numbers do not include ortho, right?
Yeah.
Ortho is not a physical location. Ortho bounces around to 4 out of our 6 locations. Ortho, we're generating, and I want to be very clear on this, on ortho, we're generating roughly 150 new patients per month, but roughly about half of them actually show for consults.
Yeah.
So
and then what's your do you track cost per start on those?
I do, and that's one thing that.
What is your cost per start for ortho? Can you share it?
If I look over the last 12 months, $186 per start, not per. Yes, you heard me right. I saw your jaw drop. We've got that dialed in so tight. Our range monthly
does that count marketing and referrals, or just is that everything?
That's only that. Okay, my cost per marketing start is over the last 12 months is $186. It varies from about $170 to $220 per month on a monthly
basis. That's insane. You should just be
yes, it is.
You should stop everything else that you're doing and jump.
You're going to hate what I have to say, and I hate
go.
this too. We actually had to dial back our ortho marketing because we didn't have the capacity.
Oh, that's such
Yes.
you're not gonna find that anywhere. Like the only people that might be able to even touch that is someone like a Smile Direct Club or something like that. That just has these massive marketing
Their
machines.
acquisition cost is three
Yeah,
ninety
that's
per
what
start.
I'm saying. Like that's probably the closest to that. That is absolutely insane. So I want to know how you're getting that. Like I want to
All
hire
right,
you
so
and come work with you.
there's a little bit of secret sauce that I'm not going to give away, and the one thing that I can say is there is a very close friend of mine in the, let's call it the tri-state area, the New York tri-state area, that has 6 ortho practices, and I've shared with him a little bit of my secret sauce. He's down to $220 roughly per start, so I know that the formulary
It
works.
works, yeah.
But let me give you the things that are not necessarily a secret sauce, but Captain Obvious, right? Number one, there are a couple of different ways we bring those in. It's all through social media, just so we're very, very
Yeah.
crystal clear, right?
Yep.
I do not count. I do not count Care to Share, which I know you're very familiar with on the personal referrals and that cost. But the first thing is our average response time on an inbound lead, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a live chat, whether it's a lead form that's generated, whether it's social media, is 1 minute and 48 seconds.
Which is huge,
That
right? Like that's going to separate you from everybody else because everybody else is going to be ours.
Exactly. And then the second part of it is a line or Invisalign, whichever you want to prefer to call it, has spent a fortune on market research. Yep. And one of the biggest takeaways I had is if you don't get the patient in within 48 hours, there's a 50% likelihood they just won't show, won't call, won't anything, right? So we return the call almost immediately, right? The second thing we do is we let them know we have 4 different locations, right? But let's get you in as soon as possible so you can take advantage of some of the specials that we have. We create that sense of urgency, right? And then the third step is someone follows up with them, and we call this the concierge call, where they call them up to set their expectations of what is going to happen during that visit. And we don't call it necessarily a free consultation. We call it a consultation, right? We don't say it's free, but we let them know that there's no charge, and then they'll make an informed decision from there.
Yeah. So you're treating it more like a lead nurture because the full arch community has really figured this out. Like, man, if I want full arch cases, because you're dealing with $50,000 to $100,000, you have to nurture the leads. So we've actually broken this down systematically in the full arch space that every $5,000 that you spend on full arch marketing, you're going to need somebody at the office level or like a marketing company like ours, nurturing that lead an hour or 2 a day for every 5,000. So if you're spending 10,000, then you need 2 to 4 hours. If you're spending 15,000, you need, right? It just keeps going up. And so that what you've done is taken that model and you moved it over to ortho. The reason that a lot of people haven't figured that out, is my guess, is ortho, there's more money going to the full arch. So people are investing more time, energy, resources into that. But this is what you just described is exactly that, is like, okay, we're going to get them in right away. We're going to respond to them right away. We're going to get them in right away. And then we're going to nurture them into the office over that next 48 hours to make sure that they.
What's interesting, forgetting my start cost, literally half of my ortho leads that show up go to GP first before they can even come back to ortho, right?
Yeah, because
they
need work. Yeah.
Is when you talk about the full arch cases, the all-on-4 cases, those are the Louis Vuittons, those are the Balenciagas of the dental world. Those are the sexy things. But those are the patients that, had they been treated properly 10 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, wouldn't even need that, right?
Yeah.
And to me, ortho is a great way, because a lot of people say, oh my God, ortho, it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. But if you catch ortho early on enough in life, you're saving your child or yourself tens of thousands of dollars in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So I totally agree. So I got another question for you on the ortho side. So are you targeting, because there's basically 3, as I see it, and I'd love if I'm wrong on this, I'd love you to correct me.
I don't believe in right or wrong. I think it depends on where you are.
Okay. Yeah. Your perspective. I would love your perspective on it. So I see 3 different groups in ortho. I see the little kid that needs ortho. That's probably not your target if you're doing clear aligners, right? I see the teen.
We do both. We do clear aligners and we do braces and brackets.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Okay. And then there's the teen That, and then there's the professional woman, which is the new, like that market's like budding like crazy. Where are you seeing the most volume from, or is there another category I'm missing?
So let me take it a little bit of a step backwards, and something that you touched upon that I instinctively knew years ago. And this is data, right? This is nothing else other than data. But you are 2 times more effective marketing to the female population than you are marketing to the male population, right?
100%. Yeah.
So I'll leave that alone, and I'm not going to go into, I don't know why, but the data shows that, right?
Yeah. 80% of all medical decisions are initiated by women across the board.
Oh, and that I believe hands down, right? And my
Yeah.
wife is a nurse, so it's probably about 90% in my household.
Yeah.
But that being said, about 60% of our makeup is what I would call adults. About 40% of our makeup is what I would call 17 and under. And our breakdown is about 50% braces, 50% clear aligners. And when you talk about who do we target, a little bit of that gets into my secret sauce, but the one giveaway
That's why.
obviously is we target females, right?
Yeah.
And you know this as a marketer better than I do. You could get very specific how you target, who you target, where you target, right?
Mhm.
Short, sweet, and simple. But one of the biggest things I think too, though, is affordability, right? And affordability doesn't mean selling something for cheap. Affordability means making it affordable.
Yes.
And most people out there, and you could ask someone who has no children, who's never had braces, hey, how much are braces? They're going to tell you anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000, right?
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
That's a lot of money. But ask someone how much they paid for their car, and most of them will look at you like a puppy and go, huh?
Well, and see, this is
But
this
if you
is
ask
the
them
dental,
how much they spend a month on their car,
yeah.
different story, right?
See, this is where
So-
the dental industry has really failed. They've failed. We've failed. Marketers, everybody, I'll include myself in there, is that how you present this is so crucial. And I know you're about to go into this, so I'm kind of teeing you up here. And so the other thing is how you present it, both marketing wise and internally in the office, of the options that you have financially makes all the difference in your close ratio. So sorry to cut you off there. Go ahead. How do you do it?
Cut me off at all. But I'm going to turn this around a little bit, right? Someone needs to explain this to me, right? And I'm not going to say Louis Vuitton. Oops, I said it out loud. But explain to me how a bag that's this big, that has maybe 24 square inches of leather, goes for $2,000, right? And a great question to ask anybody, right? Would you spend $50 on a pocketbook? Everyone says yes, right? Would you spend $100? They might say yes. Would you spend $200? Well, it depends. Would you spend $300 on a pocketbook? That's kind of their border. And they're like, well, no. Well, it's a Louis Vuitton. Oh, hell yeah, right? And it's 24 square inches of leather. The rest of it's plastic, right?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, hell yeah. I said, okay, well, would you spend $300 on a pocketbook that's all leather, made of suede? Yeah, probably. Well, it's a Walmart suede pocketbook. Hell no, right? So
Yeah.
It goes back to perception of value, right? So that's one piece of it, right? But the other piece of it goes to affordability, right? Would you spend $60,000 on a car? You're going to say it depends what kind of car it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you spend $450 a month for a nice luxury German car? What would you say? Hell yeah. By the way, the car is the same price.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's a Volkswagen Atlas. So it all goes back to perception, but it goes back to how do you make it affordable? But then the other part goes to patient education, right? When you look at ortho, someone who is compromised orthodontically, one of the cheapest things you could possibly do is ortho, because it'll save you tens of thousands of dollars and probably save your teeth in the future. But if you don't know that, there's no value. But if you understand, and as you mentioned earlier about your teeth being crowded and you trapping food, right, and you being able to clean your teeth, once you understood that, you're like, wait a second, this is a very cheap option because 2 crowns and 2 root canals will cost me the same amount of money.
Mm. So it's all presentation. So is that part of your secret sauce? Is how you're leading with price on that, or is that something that you can talk about on the ortho side?
Sauce that I think is not secret sauce, is common sense. Is we don't lead with price, but price is part of it. There's a little bit more of the secret sauce that I don't want to dive into because, and again, I gladly share things, but there are certain things that, it took us 3 years to dial into it. And by the way, tens of thousands of dollars of mistakes. But I believe not in failure. I believe if you fail, you've learned another way of how not to do it.
Yeah.
And some of it was luck, some of it was perseverance. The biggest part was just not giving up. But once we dial that in, I will tell you that 80% of the secret sauce is the intake experience, right? Number one, it's
Yeah.
very quick, right? Number two, we're calling them right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number three, we have the concierge service. So that's 80%. But it also is the Pareto principle, right? The 20-80 rule. That 20% of leads that come in is 80% of it as well. And it's a little bit of a mixed bag, because if I didn't have the 80% of the patient intake experience, that 20% wouldn't matter. But that 20% is responsible for 80% of that.
Totally. Yeah. And just for the listener's sake, again, like when we talk about these numbers, when we say, oh, $200 cost per start, that's amazing. What that number actually is it's a score. I think of it as a score that your marketing and your operations are working perfectly together. Because if we can get somebody, when we work with somebody, if we can get them to $500, $400 cost per start, we're like, yes, this is awesome, right? Because again, we're just the marketing company. So there's a lot of things that you can easily get to $1,000 cost per start in ortho, like easily in marketing, if you're not answering your phones, you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And so kudos to you. That is absolutely amazing.
And by the way, I would be very happy spending $500 a start. But I also go to, and I think this is one of the things where you specifically excel, is you have to hold your clients accountable. Because if you're doing the lead gen and they're not calling them back until 2 days later, what's the point?
It's a waste of time.
Like
yeah.
me. It's like I will never forget this. This is about a month ago, right? A friend of mine divorced for about 6 months. He's ready to date, and my wife, through one of her friends, sets him up on a date, and he doesn't show up, and he wonders why he's still single. Hi, I'm Captain Obvious.
Same thing. Yeah, exactly. So any other tips, or actually let me ask it this way. So you have all the dental marketers in the world. You have them all in a stadium. You're on the stage. You got one message that you could share with them. What would it be?
In order to make your clients successful, have the courage to hold them accountable. Because one of the things that I love about the firm that we've been working with is they would hold us accountable, and I in turn would hold my team accountable. Because you could drive 1,000 leads, but if someone doesn't pick up the phone and call them, it's very easy to point a finger at somebody else. But too often, my vendors, whether they're marketing or otherwise, if they don't hold me accountable, they're setting me up for failure, which ultimately will fail them. That's the biggest message I would send.
Awesome. That's really great feedback. Is if someone wants to reach out to you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing, or maybe even work with you on some level of what you guys are doing, what's the best way to find you?
Okay, so you're going to get a kick out of this. The best way to reach me is through my email. It's Sasha, Sasha, at, and I'll spell this, N as in no, M as in more, E as in excuses, .health, NME.health. So the enemy of our success is usually our excuses. So enemy is short for more excuses. Told you to get a kick out of it.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't catch it at first. I was like, man, I'm missing it. I'm missing what he's putting down there. Well, it's been really, really good talking with you. You shared some really great gems, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
And I appreciate your time as well, Gary. Have an awesome Friday and have a great weekend.
You too.